Well, it's taken us to bankruptcy is to default, whatever you want to call it. We're basically now interest rates are back to where they were in 2001. And if you go back to 1982 when interest rates peaked out, you'll see that each time rates came down and, and markets overheated, the Fed would raise rates and could never get even close to where the previous peak was. And they'd break something in either the economy or the markets. And when they would break something, then they would lower rates again. And they kept doing that all the way to what, 2019, 20, when we actually got to a point where rates were basically at zero, and in parts of the world, rates were negative. Now what the Fed has done over the last year or so, they've raised rates continually, and they've wiped out all the rate cuts that they had done since 2001. And when they raise rates, they're putting stress on the system. They're putting stress on banks. They're putting stress on brokers. That puts stress on derivatives, and that's over a $2 quadrillion market now. So what they're doing, and in my estimation, they're not doing this by mistake. They're doing it by plan. I think it's the takedown of the system. They will ultimately implode the entire financial facade.
So what do people do? What do people do if that moment is getting closer when the banks won't have their money anymore? What should they be do? We seem to come back to the same questions, but gold, silver, what's the role? How do you prepare? What should they be doing?
Well, you want to get out of the system. I do want to add to that opening statement that as interest rates have risen, bond prices have dropped. And understand that the entire system, the foundation for the entire financial system is debt. So what they're doing is they're hollowing out the foundation itself. You've got banks, you've got brokers, you've got, and especially insurance companies are holding all of this debt that is devaluing. It's well below par now. You have some bonds that are trading at 70, 80 cents on the dollar. So what that's done is it's made the foundation weaker and weaker, while at the same time they're adding more and more debt onto the system. So it's a double whammy. The foundation is weakening, yet the debt load itself on top is getting heavier. As far as getting out of the system or what to do, you want to become as self-reliant as you possibly can. You need to have the mindset that there's going to be a 2-week period of time, or 2 months, or 6 months. I have no idea how long once this thing goes down, how long it will take to reboot, but there will be a period of time where if you need to dial 911, nobody's going to pick up the phone, because when the financial system goes down, when credit is unavailable, the system itself will not operate. Credit is used in every single entity. Credit is used for every application, anything you touch, anything you do, every single day. Nothing will work without credit. So just understand that there's going to be a point in time where you're going to have to go it alone. And when I say go it alone, you may not have clean water. You may not have electricity. You 99.9% chance will not be able to go to a grocery store and procure food. Can you go to a farmer? Yeah, you can go to a farmer, but you're going to have to do that locally, and you're going to have something to barter with that farmer. So you want to get yourself, your physical self, as self-reliant as you possibly can, and you want to protect your capital, and the way to do that is to get it out of the system. If you hold stocks, have the stock certificates issued and ordered out to you. That way you hold the certificate in hand. If you have a big balance in the bank, you don't want a big balance in the bank. Banks, the FDIC since 2014 has language written in their charter now where they're not going to do bailouts, they're going to do bail-ins. And what that means is they're going to take some of your money to cover the bank's losses. So you don't want people or entities between you and your money.
And that's a very sound approach as well. Currency and money. Is gold and silver the only solution for you, Bill? Or are you tempted by the blockchain digitization aspect of the new world order money they seem to be seducing us with as well?
Well, blockchain is obviously going to come. That's where the governments want it to go.
Yeah.
And just understand that with the central bank digital currencies, that is, it's a way to enslave the population. For instance, the conversation you and I are having today would get our accounts shut off. And they have the ability to do that with a central bank digital currency. So it's important to not have, to have something other than a digital currency that you'll be able to rely on, use, spend, trade, barter, what have you. Just understand that with gold and silver, they cannot bankrupt. And the problem today is the world is going through a bankruptcy. And when all is said and done, we're going to look back and say, holy cow, governments went bankrupt and took the value of currencies with the bankruptcy of the governments. So the whole theory behind gold and silver, they're the only monies on the planet that cannot bankrupt in a bankrupting world.
Yeah. Yeah.
What I'm worried about is that there's such a lack of knowledge that something really bad is happening. And even those who are in cities that understand there's a problem, they may not be able to put their finger on exactly what the problem is. But there's so many, the populations are so centered in cities that when this happens, you're going to have complete chaos and you will have a depopulation event. You will have many people starve, and you will have a Mad Max scenario that makes the Mad Max movie look like a kindergarten show, because it's going to be every man for himself. You're going to have parents that will do anything in the world to feed their children. So what worries me is the population centers that are so packed that there's not enough. What's the alternative? What are they going to lead? I've said this for a while now. Many of these plans are depopulation events. Breaking down the food chain, breaking down the supply chains. What's going to happen when they allow the banks to collapse and everybody loses everything they worked for their entire life? We're no longer farmers. People are no longer self-sufficient. How many people go to a store 3 times, 5 times a week, go to restaurants 4 nights a week or whatever? We're not self-sufficient. We're not farmers. People don't know how to survive without using their debit card, without having a food source that they can pay for. And they're working on both sides. They're working on the supply of food, and like I said, they will allow the banks to collapse, and that will take people's wealth away. And of course, that will bring in universal basic income. As long as you go along with whatever they say to do and vote for whoever they say to vote for, your entire lifestyle. And I've actually suggested to people, one way to find out if you have a plan that's going to work is go home on a Friday night and turn everything off. Turn your water off. Turn your electricity off. Turn your internet off, because internet's not going to work. Live like a caveman for a weekend and find out where the holes in your plan is or are.